I am so thrilled and honored that this memorial service was put together for my father, because this is the memorial service he deserved. And that I could make it, at least one person in my family could make it today. It's just so wonderful. And all of you who are here, the students and people under 30, you are his legacy. My father would, if he knew that there were 2,700 students involved in all these programs today, I could just see him, he'd go, oh my God, you know, he would just be totally thrilled. He'd see, we'd have ice cream. Even my mother was not Nina. My mother, my father's first wife, wrote something very beautiful, and she sent it this morning. I wanted to read part of it only because I'd been asked, what was Steve's, what was Rabbi Schafer's motivation? You know, what made him such a Zionist? And it really was his first visit to Israel. And I think he wanted all of you to have the impact of what that was like. It changed his life. My mother wrote, I met Steve Schafer in October 1949 when he first landed by boat in the port of Haifa. My father and I were there to welcome him and pick up my first cousin, Shani Lewinson, who was making Aliyah. Steve and Shani met on the boat, and because Steve did not know anybody, my mother found a room for him. He found and registered for his first Hebrew ulpan and began fixing things around our house. I was still in the Army. That was my mother. My mother loved Steve, who was so handy and helpful, even though she spoke no English and Steve spoke no Hebrew. She helped him with his Hebrew, and my father with learning Jewish history and Jewish thought. It brought my mother comfort, especially since 8 to 9 months earlier, on March 27th, 1948, my brother Balfour was killed on Mount Zion. I need some water. I was meant to. Do I have any of that? Okay. Well, if somebody can bring me some water, I'll be.
Here, do it.
Thank you.
Here's the first aid. The rest is on the way.
Thank you. This is one of the things that happens to me when I get thirsty. Really excited. Things happened fast. On March 21st, 1950, after a year of mourning for Balfour, my mother and father got married. We promised my parents that we would make our home in Israel after Steve finished rabbinical studies. In August of 1950, when the Korean War started, we came by boat to the Golden Medina, as my mother's father used to call it. A month later, we were in Cincinnati, HUC, and Steve started the 5 long, hard years of rabbinic school. Steve toiled while I played. How come? Because of my Hebrew, Arabic, and knowledge of Jewish books, and some Judaica, I was offered the job of desk librarian at the excellent library of HUC. I got to know some of the students and professors. One of them was Rabbi Dick Hirsch, who could not be here today. Rabbi Hirsch, she actually met in Israel. He was the best man at my father's wedding. As my father used to say, there were about 2,000 people at this wedding, and my father knew 4 of them. In 1955, Steve was chosen by the HUC to start a new project, a summer school program for new rabbinical students. The Kaufman family from Sears and Roebuck donated their summer estate in Towanda, Pennsylvania, to the Hebrew Union College. Well, we had to transform this estate into a school that included dorms. The professors for Hebrew and Jewish history were from HUC, and they were the teachers, and our daughter Debbie was the mascot. Right, okay. I'm not going to read everything that my mother wrote, but sometime in the late 50s, Rabbi Sam Cook, the national director of NIFTY, suggested to Steve that there is an opportunity for both of them to live in Israel. They were looking for a rabbi to run the Leo Beck School in Haifa, and he recommended it to my father. My mother loves to tell the story about, as an inducement and encouragement, he gave my mother and father a whole lot of money to take to the Leo Beck School, and it was in cash. And they carried it, my mother carried it in her handbag and handed it over. And in those days, there wasn't much security. In Haifa, after long discussions and many considerations, my father declined. And a year later, Rabbi Bob Samuel and his wife accepted the position. I think, this is my mother speaking, I think that the 1967 Six-Day War, especially the recapture of Old City Jerusalem, brought a new confidence and pride that enabled and encouraged former dreamers to begin believing that Reform Judaism can have young Zionists who would be able and willing to plant roots in the land of Israel. There are always big questions of our next generation. Sometimes there are answers, but the questions must continue. And I'm very proud of the part that my mother also played in supporting my father and his Zionistic and interest in Jewish education. He fell in love, as I said, he fell in love with the country on that first visit. What I also wanted to say in terms of my experience, because everybody here has also said a lot. During Dad's years at the head of the UAHC division, my whole family, my brothers, Jonathan, Joel, and I, were brought in to participate in different ways. I was encouraged to, and just given the job of illustrating the first, along with Paul Reichenbach, who may still be in the room, to illustrate the first pamphlet about being NIFTY in Israel. And in fact, I designed the first t-shirt and poster, and I actually have copies of those with me. But one of the things that was most important about my dad that I wanted to say was, he recognized, appreciated, and encouraged everyone for their own strengths. And he saw it in them and validated them, and saw the contributions that people could make. And he didn't stand on ceremony to interview and stand over anybody with a hammer to make sure that they were doing it right. He trusted them, and he wanted them to do what, and contribute and be a part of and have their own contributions validated. He never stood around and tooted his own horn, and in fact, I heard so many stories and the names, and all of your names, you know, you who are here, Michael, Livni, and Gidon Elad, just Hank, Skirball, everybody here. I just heard your names so often that even though I didn't spend much time with you myself, I knew your stories. Anyway, I am very grateful to be here, and I think that those of you who are here with me know that he deserved and would have loved all of us to be together and share stories and continue these relationships.